Story 1. The other day, I was driving around town getting errands done. One of those was to get a new controller for my PC. I have a friend who works at the GameStop in town, so I swung by. As I'm entering, I'm noticing a woman with her child standing front and center at the counter with my friend at the register. I start to tune into the conversation. After all this happened, my friend filled in the details, so I'll start right before I entered. Karen, I'd like to get my money back for this game. My husband bought it from here last week, but it isn't the franchise game my son wanted. My friend, sure thing. The game is still in plastic wrap, unopened. My friend starts to process it. Do you have the receipt for this purchase? No. Why would I need that? It's 2021. Everything should be digital now. You should have a record of it. That isn't something I have. Do you have a reward card with us? It would show the purchase. Karen takes out her reward card. My friend checks it and only sees the initial activation of the card on her account. This is also around when I entered the store. I'm sorry, this doesn't have a purchase for this game. Well, it was taken out of my credit card. She then takes out her phone and shows him her full purchase history of her credit card. See? I made a purchase on my card. My friend, visibly uncomfortable, glances at the phone and sees an itemized purchase at that store for a lot more than the purchase of a single game. I'm sorry, this doesn't show this game's purchase, just that this card was used to make a large purchase here, and I don't think I could use this as proof anyway. What I can do is put the amount on a rewards card for store credit. Now is when the Karen starts to raise her voice. What do you mean? So because I spent more money here, I'm getting screwed? I want my money back. This is ridiculous. I want to speak to your manager. My friend informs her that there is no manager in the store, that they are the only current employee on site. She does not take the news well, obviously. Then who do you call? You must have someone to call if this place is blown up. My friend then begins to call local stores for their managers, or if one of the district managers happens to be there. Unfortunately, no one picked up. I'm sorry, ma'am, I can't get a hold of another store's manager, and our district manager is quarantined due to COVID. Why can't you call them then? If they're quarantined, all they should be doing is answering the phone. All I want is my money back. If I knew who you bought the game from, maybe I could verify it. Do you recall the employee's name? I don't. He was white like everyone else that lives in state X. Some guy? I don't know. Why would I need a physical receipt? It's 2021. Nothing should be physical. Look it up on your computer. I'm sorry, but I can't do that. The most I can do for you is give you the store credit. I had by now decided I would stay in the store to keep an eye on things to ensure she didn't accuse my friend of anything, as well as keep an eye on the child who was not being attended to and wandering the store. Mind you, her son was just hanging out, seemingly unbothered by the fit his mother was causing. However, I tuned out the conversation as an advertisement for a game came on the store TV that made it very hard not to laugh at the parallel. The advertisement went, "When someone thinks they're in the right, that's when the real cruelty in people starts to come out. So what do you say? Are you really right?" When I tuned back in, Karen was accepting the store credit in a tone as if she had won the argument. She then went on a rant about this all being her husband's fault, and that the store should be more open about options to return products. She took the digital currency and left with her son, who had not said a word the entire time. My friend then turned, gave me an exasperated sigh. I was so done, I didn't bother to ask if her or her husband had signed up for digital receipts. I mean, it's 2021 after all, right? Story 2. I tutor high school math and science on the side. I usually take 5 or 6 students a year because my full-time job takes up most of my time. I only accept families who seem reasonable and respectful. A coworker asked if I could help her neighbor's son who was struggling in math. She said the parents would be a little involved, but I assumed that meant they would hover a bit and ask too many questions. That did not worry me. Then I met the mother. From the first phone call, She treated me like I was interviewing for a position in her personal education empire. She spent 20 minutes interrogating me about my qualifications, past students, teaching methods, and beliefs about learning. She ended by telling me they expected quick results and would not accept excuses, which was okay since it is part of the job for me. I decided to try anyway because the kid seemed polite and genuinely overwhelmed. For a few weeks, things were manageable, though her constant messages were exhausting. She kept sending instructions disguised as questions. Give him more homework. You did not cover enough today. Why is he not improving faster? Explain limits again, but simpler or harder, whichever makes him understand. Every session ended with a list of her suggestions, which were really just orders. The real problem started when it was time to schedule the next set of sessions. I offered 4 time slots over the next month. All of them were on weeknights or weekends because of my actual job. She rejected all of them, saying they conflicted with her yoga classes, her wine club, and something she called her quiet hour. Then she told me to come Thursday at 8 in the morning. She said she would leave the door open and her son would be waiting in the kitchen. I told her politely that I cannot tutor during my work hours. She replied immediately. She said that since she was paying me, I needed to make time when she required it, and that she was not going to rearrange her schedule for a tutor. That was the moment I decided to walk away. I emailed her and copied my coworker. I thanked her for the opportunity, but ended the tutoring relationship due to the scheduling issues. She replied within minutes. She told me I was not allowed to quit, and that this was not how professionals behave. I ignored the message. A couple of weeks passed. The father emailed me sounding tired and apologetic. He said every reputable tutor nearby was fully booked for exam season, and the few available tutors were more than twice my rate. Their son was falling further behind and becoming anxious. He also mentioned that the mother had driven away another tutor before me. He asked if I would reconsider and work with him directly. I declined. I liked the kid, but there was no chance I was taking on a situation where the mother could insert herself again. Later, my coworker told me that watching the mother finally face a consequence for her behavior was the most peaceful moment of her year. Actions lead to consequences. The math adds up. Story 3. 16 years ago, I made a friend one day on the bus. Up until about a year ago, I considered this guy a member of my family. Let us call this guy Joel. So, I keep a crystal bowl on the mantel above my fireplace, full of my medical marijuana. I started noticing that after poker night, my bowl seemed a lot emptier than it should. So I set up a camera to see which one of my guests was helping themselves when my back was turned. Next poker night, once everyone was gone, I pulled up the video. There Joel was, plain as day, stuffing about $60 worth of my medication into his pocket. I sent him the video and told him he had to return my medication or pay for it, and I told him that if he chose to do neither, he should no longer consider me a friend. He denied it. Even with the video staring him in the face, he said he had not taken anything. He even had the nerve to act offended by the fact that I accused him. Over the years, he had told me a lot of things he did not want his wife to know. Affairs, shady things he did with their joint funds, drug issues, and terrible things he said about her, her mother, and her sister. I went back through all of our messages and took screenshots of everything secret he had ever said to me. There were over 70 pictures. I sent her the screenshots. Here are some examples of the kind of things that were in the screenshots. He admitted to cheating on her 8 times over the course of our friendship. He admitted to taking money they were saving for a car and using it to buy drugs, specifically Xanax and Percocet. He admitted to the fact that he was continuing to do drugs after he promised her he was clean and sober. Some of the things he said about her and her family were: she is a vile, unpleasant woman. He said he was pretty sure she was abusing her niece. He said that all of her friends only pretend to like her so they can buy oxycodone from her, and other similar comments. He said her sister is an insane harpy. He said her sister abuses her kids, which is not true, but he said it. He said her sister is faking her autoimmune disease for attention. He said her mom is a lazy person who does not actually need to be in a wheelchair. He said she only likes not having to stand up or bathe herself, so she is malingering. There were more things, but that is what came to mind without me having to dig through the screenshots I sent. She filed for divorce and reported him to the police for the drugs he had in their house. While he was doing his 8 months in jail for the marijuana, which he stole from me, his boss filled his position and he lost his job. His now ex-wife will not let him in her house. Now he lives in a car and showers at truck stops. I found out about the aftermath in parts. Some came from his ex-wife. She told me about the divorce, kicking him out, and getting him arrested. Some came from a guy Joel and I used to both be friends with, who works at the place Joel used to work. He told me about the job loss, car living, and the truck stop thing. I am still on good terms with his ex-wife. I even sent her some enchiladas the other day for Cinco de Mayo. I also sent the video to all of our mutual friends, so he lost 90% of his social circle. I cut that other 10% out of my own life, since they want to associate with known thieves. Birds of a feather. Story 4. So Ruckel never made it above private E2. In fact, he spent most of his career as a private E1. I don't think it is a surprise to anyone who has read any of Ruckel's adventures. This happened post 9/11s and not long after Ruckel tried to train the augmentees. So Ruckel had just had his evaluation, just like a lot of us. Apparently, he wasn't happy with his results. So I don't know how his meeting went when he got his results, but I can tell you about the conversation he had at guard mount the next shift. Now, for those who are unfamiliar with guard mount, it is a formation done at the start of the duty shift. Everyone forms up, gets a once-over by either a senior NCO or officer, gets any pertinent information, and then is sent on their merry way to their duty assignment. I understand the USAF security forces also have guard mount, but I don't know about the other branches. So before guard mount, everyone gears up and talks crap with each other. Ruckel took this opportunity to chat with our amazing Lieutenant Cruz. As stated before in the Fight Club story, Lieutenant Cruz was as cool as they get. He was prior enlisted and didn't see himself as being better than the rest of us. Ruckel apparently wanted to plead his case for a better evaluation score and a promotion or two. Leaning against the wall next to the lieutenant was a specialist we will call Specialist Bama. He was from Alabama and had a thick accent. He was a good guy. Here is how the part of the conversation I heard went. "Sir, it isn't fair," Ruckel said. "This is not the time or the place to discuss this, Ruckel. I'll talk with you later." Lieutenant Cruz told him, "Sir, you wouldn't listen to me earlier. I deserve a better score so I can get a promotion." "Ruckel, your scores were more than fair. It's up to the colonel if you get a promotion or not. I am not changing your scores. I should be a specialist by now, maybe even a sergeant. He won't give it to me with those scores." "Ruckel, I'm not talking about this with you, and just so you know, you will never, ever be a sergeant. Not in this lifetime anyway. This isn't fair. They took my stripe for no good reason, and I want it back plus another promotion to specialist. I've earned it." "Ruckel, first off, you were demoted for altering your ID, not to mention the cars you've wrecked. That's your own damn fault. Secondly, you forgot that PFC, Private First Class, comes before Specialist. Did you even read the Army Field Manual? Finally, and I mean it, we are done talking about this." Ruckel, oblivious to or ignoring the lieutenant. "Is it possible to get a field promotion? I heard that during war soldiers can be promoted in the field. We're at war and I can get a field promotion and be in charge of the augmentees." Lieutenant Cruz had a look on his face at this point that is hard to describe. It would be like if you gave Severus Snape a headache and at the same time he is trying not to laugh at the stupid thing you said to give him the headache. If that makes any sense, it's like you can see their sanity leaving them and madness taking over. "Will someone please?" Lieutenant Cruz asked while looking around. Specialist. Bama asked. Lieutenant, may I? Would you please? I'm going to get a Red Bull and some ibuprofen. Ruckel. This ain't World War II, and you ain't in Normandy. You are not getting a promotion. Now leave the lieutenant alone before he demotes you to a private negative class. What the heck do you know? I am a complete idiot that should be on permanent crappy patrol. Yes, I agree with you. If you look up the term idiot in the dictionary, you'll find a picture of you and the words, see Ruckel, but only if you want a headache. At this point, Ruckel stormed out of the room to find the lieutenant. I have no idea what happened next, but Ruckel was reassigned to clean all the rifles in the armory the next 3 shifts, so I have a pretty good idea of how it must have gone. I honestly think that if Ruckel understood how the chain of command worked, and that rank has its privileges, then he might have gotten into trouble, perhaps less. He just didn't get that a superior is not on the same level as you, for the most part. I hope you liked the story. I will post another one in a few days. Thank you again for reading. Story 5. This story takes place in Ontario, in the city of Kawartha Lakes, one of the worst municipalities in all of Ontario in which to live. There's poverty, crime, drug addiction, a culture of prideful ignorance, and die-hard partisan voters that will vote against their best interest time and time again. And if you paid attention to the news recently, their Ontario provincial police shot and killed a 1-year-old. The city council are looting their tax base to provide free educational opportunities for unqualified staffers they hired, holding secret meetings behind the public's back, and in one case spent $140,000 to fight a lawsuit that was levied against them after they blocked a brand new business's access road, because some city council members owned a competing businesses. They were fined $70,000 and spent another $70,000 of taxpayer dollars to appeal and lose. That's all the backstory. Suffice it to say, it's a city run by uneducated rubes and inhabited by the most apathetic voters I've ever encountered. My old man was an original property owner of an unassumed road for 50-plus years. For the uninitiated, this means that although the city owned the road, they are not responsible for maintenance, grooming, etc. beyond the scope of the limited service agreement they made with a single property owner, who we later found out forged signatures, claiming he represented the entire road. The legal services agency basically meant they would do 2 gradings per year, though they only actually provided 1. About 20 years ago, some city idiots moved up on the road and decided they would create a homeowner association. They didn't get insured, they didn't incorporate, and they thought they could go around forging signatures on city documents and charging residents money for essentially nothing. It all came to a head about 10 years ago. My dad refused to pay them until the 2 chuckleheads in charge showed him how they spent the money. Rather than provide a fair accounting of the neighborhood funds, the president and the treasurer both decided they wanted to sue for the money owing. Well, we went to court, and it turns out that you don't just get to declare yourself the head of an association that doesn't exist. Turns out, you can't collect money from the residents and spend it on cookware and paying their unqualified, uninsured friends to do road work. Turns out, perjury is frowned on in a small claims court. They found out the hard way. I discovered in their court filings examples of perjury, fraud, and general dishonesty. They manufactured documents and got caught doing so. They were given multiple options to settle in court, but turned them all down, instead choosing to self-destruct in the most absurd and stubborn way available to them. None of their witnesses showed up. They brought literally no evidence with them to court, instead relying on the phrase, "It's not rocket science," and they somehow assumed the judge would accept "it's not rocket science" as some kind of evidence, or as somehow lending credibility to their claims. He didn't. The homeowner association lost and ended up owing us money. The homeowner association dissolved immediately afterwards, and if the story ended there, it would make sense, but not be a very interesting story. But you're not here for just a good guys win story. You want satisfaction. Turns out, one of those 2 old men that fancied themselves in charge of the homeowner association couldn't accept defeat. Our driveway lights started to disappear, and someone was blocking the culvert in the middle of the night and washing out the road in front of my dad's house. Minor vandalism was happening almost on a nightly basis. So, I came home late one night, and sure enough, this moron is thrashing about in the April temperature swamp, having fallen in after blocking the culvert. He got his shirt tangled in an underwater branch and can't get out. We had to haul him out because he was so drunk and suffering from hypothermia that he couldn't even move. Then we called the cops. He got arrested, trespassed, and no driveway lights ever went missing again, and the cops let me keep the trash can lid he was using to block the culvert. Free lid. Moral of this story is don't take nonsense from homeowner association. They may look official, but I'll bet you most homeowner associations are doing something shady that will reflect poorly on them in court should you find yourself at odds with them. Story 6. I'm a youth sports coach, and whatever stories you've heard about insane parents, it can be even worse than that. I'm in a league where parents are already planning out their kids' target colleges before they can walk. I have kids who were pressured into the game by mom and dad, so don't bring the same heart to the field. It makes it quite difficult to read them. For example, I only just got free of a dispute that's been ongoing for over 3 months. A sweet but clumsy sophomore who has fun with his teammates but is overall completely indifferent to the sport was out indefinitely with a serious rotator cuff injury. He'd had surgery. He was still sitting in on practices at his parents' insistence, but by no means was he taking a step in the direction of the field. He never complained or protested, like my die-hard kids who want to be here do, often to their own detriment. He was just as happy to sit playing video games. Great. The best player you can hope for is one who doesn't rush recovery. I was proud of and relieved by how he was handling things. So one day, not even 3 weeks after his surgery, his mom shows up and says, "All right, my son's cleared to play. He can start back today. Maybe someone should take some time to work with him one-on-one to get him caught up." I was surprised, but I'm not a doctor, so if they cleared him, he's clear. But, as is protocol, I asked for an official letter from the medical office approving him to return to practice for the team's files. His mom was flabbergasted. "I don't have it with me. Who carries that around?" It hadn't even occurred to me she might be doing something so brazen and reckless as what she was. So, without skipping a beat, I cheerfully said, "No worries. He can hang with us while you run home and fax or email it to me." She stuttered for a second and finally came up with, "I don't have time to go all the way home. I have another appointment." It was then that I noticed her son was looking kind of uncomfortable throughout all this, and while he isn't our most enthusiastic guy, I would have still expected him to be psyched to return to practice after sitting patiently on the sidelines for such a long hiatus. So, while I might have agreed to wait until the next day to see the letter in any other case, knowing the player would start back by easing in very slowly regardless, I knew this time I had to see written proof before so much as giving the kid a light stretch routine. I told Mom, "So, I'll just give his doctor's office a call and they can send the letter to us. It's still early, we can catch them if we call right now." And stood there, expectantly, waiting for her to call. She gasped and stuttered some more before finally blurting out, "He isn't being treated by a Western big pharma doctor. He's on an essential oil regimen." I didn't know whether to laugh or start shouting. It was so ridiculous that she was even positing treating an internal injury with essential oils, but even more so infuriating that she would risk her son's health just to get him back in practice a few weeks early. I couldn't tell straight away if she genuinely thought the oils had healed his shoulder, which still visibly appeared to be causing him pain, or if she was just saying that to try and get out of producing the letter she didn't have, because he was seeing a doctor who had not cleared him yet. I was stuck at that point and called another coach over to confer privately. After giving her a rundown of the situation, she suggested a foolproof plan. I returned to the boy's mother and said, "So I just talked with some other members of the staff, and I have great news. The team physician can do a routine post-op exam right now and write a letter. Thankfully, she didn't call my bluff because while we do have a team physician, you have to make appointments with him a week or more in advance. So his mother says she isn't comfortable with him seeing a strange doctor. I reiterate, this is our team physician, who has assisted her son whenever he's been injured on the field, not a stranger to him. She pivoted back to not trusting Western medicine and wanting to maintain the essential oils plan. She started going off about how all these scans are going to give him radiation poisoning, etc. So I told her I couldn't help her and sent her on her way. Her son was mouthing, "Sorry, coach," to me as she gave her speech, and I knew then that I had done the right thing. You could see in his eyes he did not have anything to do with this scheme to rush back on the field. She stormed off absolutely irate, cursing me and even some players from her own son's team who passed her on the way out, and continued making a scene in the front, until someone from marching band practice asked her to leave, because they literally could not hear all of the instruments with the way she was carrying on. Not even 24 hours later, the principal and head of athletics each had letters from a law firm accusing us of discriminating against her son, preventing him from playing because of the family's belief in alternative medicine. To be abundantly clear, a shoulder injury is very serious, especially at her son's age. If he didn't do the proper steps for recovery, he could be stuck with a lifetime of pain and not just never play sports again, but never lift anything or hold basic positions without mind-bending pain. Not to mention the potentially permanent mobility problems were he to re-injure himself by playing contact sports while hurt. So, in short, this was a matter of way more than jostling for authority with a parent or personal views about healthcare. It was an issue of my players' physical safety and a hill I was more than willing to die on. I was prepared to go out of my own pocket for a lawyer and say all of that in court if need be. I was in no position to do so financially, but I didn't care. Like I said, I would die on this hill. The principal showed the letter to his lawyer wife, who suggested we just ignore it and see if the kid's mom would just tire of investing time and money into the situation. I know what you're thinking, and you're exactly right. She was not going down that easy. She was back with the lawyer in person at a practice the following week. He tried to tell me something about how, as a team at public school, I could not prevent her son from participating because of the family's personal beliefs, and every child had a right to do public school activities. Well, I couldn't be further from a lawyer, but that was still easy even for me. Guy, this is a tryout team. No one is guaranteed participation, and I can cut players for any reason I see fit. That stymied him, and I think he told the boy's mother that she was out of options. But I guess she kept sending him checks because he kept writing us letters. Out of an abundance of caution, since you never know how far a crazy person is willing to take a thing like this, or how much money she had to pursue the issue, I had a consultation with an attorney of my own. I gave her all of the documents to review, and once she was finished laughing uncontrollably, she told me not to think twice about this, and to only come back if I was served with actual papers to appear in court. 6 weeks later, I was back in her office. The boy's mother was bringing the school into a civil suit, and I had been called to testify. I met with the lawyer, and I'm lucky she was so honest. She told me the district would probably have a counsel for me and to wait before cutting her any checks. She was right. So I was in a big harried meeting preparing for this case. All of the team boosters were there, top administrators I'd only ever heard the name of but never seen in person, and even more people still who I've already forgotten because these meetings were such a stressful blur. It was getting very serious very quickly. More than once, I was pulled aside by someone with more important places to be and asked if I couldn't just clear the kid to play. By the time things began to wrap up, I was making good and frequent use of that Randy Jackson meme. Yeah, that's going to be a no from me. We were about a week and a half out from the first official court date, and in serious discussions with the school's council about actually just buying these people off of the team and settling out of court if they agreed to walk away from the sport and drop the issue. No one wanted to hear me explain all the reasons why that would never work. I was just leaving a smaller one of these strategy meetings when I saw the kid loitering outside of my office. I knew I wasn't supposed to speak to any of them, but the kid had been really cool throughout the whole ordeal, and he definitely wished he wasn't associated with any of his mom's wild antics. So I cautiously approached, and before I could even say anything, the kid drags his dad out from around a corner. His dad seemed concerned his wife might drop out of a ceiling grate or something, but his son was determined and prodded him going, "Do it. Let's go." His dad, keeping his head on a constant swivel, quietly said, "I understand you can have my son cleared by a team physician." I nodded, and the dad hesitated, but the son was clearly fed up and, staring daggers at the man, goes, "Okay then, let's get going. Sign what you need to sign for me to see who I need to see." My guess is he didn't want to be known as the player who had testified against his team, because parents are chatty and everyone at school definitely knew about what was going on. The poor henpecked guy kept saying, quietly enough that his son couldn't hear, "Listen, if my wife ever found out about this, holy hell, can you please just not make a big scene with it? Just say he was cleared to play. No need to advertise how it happened, okay?" I assured him that not only would I never advertise a student's private business for social clout, but that when it came to medical issues, I was legally prohibited from sharing information with anyone. So I sent one of the only messages flagged urgent that I have ever had to direct to our teen doctor, and by the end of the day, our highly relieved strategy team was able to place a call informing the mother that her son was cleared to return to practice. Now, don't get it twisted. I didn't ram his recovery paperwork through a back channel to end the suit or alleviate pressure from the administration. His mom had dragged this whole ordeal out so long that he'd actually fully healed. Our doctor was able to pass him with flying colors. She still isn't the worst parent I've had to deal with hostility-wise, but certainly the most serious matter. Other people get into it with us over playing time or game schedules or even their kid's uniform number. This is the only one I can remember being this negligent with her son's physical well-being, so it will always rank highest as my worst parent experience. It was just finally confirmed that I am 100% free of all the legal brouhaha, so I can gleefully share the story. With strangers at least. Don't want to put the kid on blast in our tiny community, but do want to vent to a whole bunch of people. So everyone, play safe out there, and thanks if you've read this far.